welcome everybody. Hey, Polly. So I didn't see previous minutes attached. Well, they're attached, but they're not in the sheet to approve them.
Let me see who's here. Sarah. Oh, you three. I was gonna say I wasn't here, so I can't vote on them.
I think you could do it under consent agenda though.
Okay. And that's what I figured, just it wasn't listed under there. But it normally is listed under the consent agenda, the previous minutes with the policies, and I just didn't see it listed.
I'll note it.
But we do have them, so we'll tackle the consent agenda with the policies. Anybody have any questions or discussion on any of the policies? And then we'll tag the previous minutes in. So I'll take a motion. Anybody's willing to give one?
I'll move.
Motion made by Polly. Rick?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Polly?
Aye.
And myself is an aye. So that moves. Agenda preview prioritization. I see a couple names I don't recognize. I'm guessing they're with the school spotlight.
I think that's true. I don't have anything that I need to move.
Okay. And so on to the school spotlight. Jennifer and Joseph.
So why don't we start with Jen Hubbard. Jen, do you want to introduce what you're going to do for your school spotlight?
I would love to. I have with me tonight Amber Renadette, and she is our math coach and interventionist. And she's been critical in helping us put together an MTSS structure and progress monitoring. So often I have said in my board notes, have given you updates on how students are doing their growth. And I wanted to share with you tonight one of the tools that we're using, and it's called STAR 360. And it's a universal progress monitoring tool that students take, and Amber's going to explain more, but it's on the computer. And then we kind of are able to find out how the students are doing, what areas they need to work on, and the growth that they're making. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Amber.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for letting me share my presentation with you this evening. Hopefully you'll be able to know a little bit more about STAR 360, as it's something that hopefully more schools in our district will be using in general. So I'll just share my screen because I have a presentation to show you. All right, so as Jen said, I am the math coach and interventionist here at the elementary school. And STAR 360 is a math and reading and early literacy assessment tool, and also comes with lots of resources. Hold on, it's not letting me. Hold on, let me try it again because it's not letting me go to my next slide. Oh, there it is. Sorry about that. So this is just a little quick snapshot of what STAR 360 has been, why it's been so highly used in schools across the nation, and why schools have utilized it so much. Because of one of the reasons is because it takes such a short amount of time, and it helps in plan for instruction. It's highly rated, has lots of resources that go with it, and it can really measure students' growth with norms using the Common Core standards. So what is it? It's basically, like I said, it's a math and literacy screener. It can be given on the kids' computers or Chromebooks. And also last year we used it with iPads for the kindergartners. It's aligned with the Common Core standards. It can be used pre-K through 12th grade. It's usually given as a screener 3 times a year, but we have some teachers this year that wanted to give it more of like progress monitoring. So we have one teacher that has piloted it and has given it every month to her students to just try to see their progression a little bit more frequently. Each session takes around 25 minutes. It's about 15 minutes for pre-K and kindergarten because they only do the early literacy. It's not as long of an assessment. Helps to determine our student goals, and it has a lot of resources and professional development that we can use as teachers and use with our students. And I found a short video that kind of just introduces it to you all, so I'm just going to show that to you.
Get the data you need today to prepare all students for tomorrow. With STAR assessments, you'll assess students in reading, math, or early literacy, review results immediately after testing, plan personalized instruction, and set research-based goals, all to help you confidently guide students' growth. Answer essential questions related to screening, progress monitoring, standards mastery, state proficiency, instructional planning, and growth. Backed by over 100 studies and highly rated by the National Center on Intensive Intervention, educators trust STAR assessments to provide actionable and accurate data about student performance and growth. Renaissance STAR assessments use the power of computer adaptive technology backed by strong learning progressions to provide highly valuable information in less than 20 minutes. This means you spend more time teaching and less time assessing without sacrificing the critical data insights you need to inform instructional decision-making. When educators have accurate predictions of student performance, they don't just get to see the future, they have the power to change that future. By using STAR data along with all the other information known about a student, teachers can help each student master new skills, close learning gaps, and accelerate growth so they're motivated to learn today and better prepared for the future. Educators in more than 1/3 of schools nationwide rely on STAR data to inform instruction to ensure all students are on the path toward future success. Experience the purposeful, proven, powerful, and predictive qualities of STAR assessments that provide the insight you need to maximize student growth.
So there's lots of benefits for using STAR 360. Our school has used it. This is the second year that we've used it here in Enosburgh. I've used it a couple years before in my previous school as well. And Michelle had asked me to bring it here last year when I came. So one of the biggest reasons is that it really helps to guide our instruction, and you can look at the results of STAR through the whole class or small groups of kids that you can target, or even down to individual goals. It helps you for your intervention and enrichment groups. Gives you very comprehensive reports, and I'll show you a few examples of that after. It gives you more than just a number score because it's allowing you to look at where they're progressing among their peers in their classroom and then among the peers nationwide, and where they should be going along the curriculum and measured with the Common Core standards. And it's just a really nice picture along with our other assessments like the PNOA and our end of unit tests and the F&P to give us a complete picture of students.
And just to interrupt for 1 second, we use the STAR 360 3 times a year, and it's a universal screener. And as Amber said, we do have a teacher piloting using it more often, but we definitely do those 3 times a year, and that's to every student. So we consider that a universal screener. Then if something pops up on this screen, on the screener, then we might want to dig deeper and do a PNOA on the student, or we might want to do an F&P or a number of other assessments. But this way we have every student and we're tracking their progress and seeing where they are 3 times a year.
Okay, so what's PNOA and F&P?
So the PNOA is stands for the Primary Number Observation Assessment. And or operational assessment. So what it is it's given, they actually just started a pre-K PNOA. I took the class last week on that. So it's pre-K through third grade. Third grade has the ENOA. And basically what it is it looks at all the number concepts in a much more deeper glance than what the STAR would do. And F&P stands for Fontes and Pinnell, and that's a benchmark system that's used through literacy. And what it does is it gives you more of a level where kids are at, and it's more diagnostic. So instead of just giving you a score of how they're doing overall, it looks at more of like their fluency, their comprehension, their word identification, and all that together.
So the STAR would give us information that the student's struggling in math, and even maybe what area, geometry, wherever they're struggling. And then if we want more information, we could give the PNOA, and that goes into individual skills at grade levels to see where we really need to focus. So we can get very targeted instruction.
Using the STAR 360 allows us to see what their future performance is going to look like by the end of the year, because it tells you that in their score. And it also has a feature where you can compare it to what they would be performing on SBAC. So if they still did the same performance as they did on the STAR and compared it to the SBAC, that's what it would look like. So it's a really good way to kind of compare those results. And like I said, there's lots of reports that you can do individually. You can compare your whole class. You can look at specific skills or specific standards if you wanted to. You can determine the kids that need more support and intervention. I love this feature. It includes the virtual PD and live. Their support of their live chat and phone support is amazing, and I've utilized it many times. It also has STAR Custom, which is great because I use it a lot as an interventionist, because what it does is it takes the skills that the kids need to work on the most and allows you to get resources that STAR has available and have them practice them in between. So like if in intervention, I'm working on addition word problems, I can go into STAR Custom, I can pull out what STAR already has for word problems, and I can assign it to that student, and then that student can go in and practice it, and they can see their results immediately. So it's a really good, quick, formal assessments that I can do that also go along with STAR 360 in between the screenings.
And in my previous school, I did action research study on the correlation between SBAC and the STAR results. And especially in math, they are highly correlated, that you really can get a good prediction how a student is going to do. So I apologize for that. How a student is going to do on the SBAC from their position on how they do on the STAR. And so we can intervene if we see something that is not working.
So what it looks like for the students is that each test starts with 3 practice warm-up questions. It is a multiple choice format. Math and reading, there are 35 questions, and the early literacy, which is given to pre-K, K, and first grade if you wanted to, or really any grade level if you feel a student will do better on it. It's a little shorter, it's 27 questions. And there are options to tailor it to students and their accommodations that they would normally get on SBAC. So like they can have extra time per question, they can have the text read to them if they need to, or you can go and start a student at a lower level if you feel like they should be that off the grade level. And like it said in the video, it is adjust like according to the student's strengths and weaknesses. And hopefully, I know that the middle school has been using the math. I'm not sure if they are continuing to use it, if they're using it more in the high school this year, but hopefully our data can be linked through the middle school and high school as well. And so there's lots of reports that I can show you. I'm gonna try to get out of this for 1 second so I can show you. I pulled up my daughter's report just so that we weren't looking at some random child, but this is what her last score was on the math that she took. So you want kids to be proficient in the green, obviously. This shows you doesn't have like an exceeding. That's the only thing, like we're used to seeing like if they're above grade level, how far above they are, but it does show you like just the scale of how far above she was at that proficiency range. The blue gives you children that you would consider to be on watch. So you would want to really look at that student and look at how their classwork is going and their homework is going, and seeing if maybe I should give them a little bit more targeted support, or did they just have an off day? And then the yellow would be, and the red are more geared towards your intervention and really where you want to show kids more support. So your urgent intervention is where you would probably do more one-on-one, very specific targeted support to kids. And your intervention, you could probably pull groups of kids together. When you look at this score, it gives you their scaled score, which is in the range of this whole all stars enterprise range. And then what her projected score is on the bottom. So if we did nothing with this child for the rest of the school year, well, I think this was taken in March, but the rest of the school year, her projected score would be right here. This is her percentile rank of all other second graders at this level right now. And then what the nice part is down here is that it gives you the focus scale. Like if I were taking her, this would be something that I would want to work on with her. So you're going to get at that second grade level, what's the most important for her to be working on. And it gives you everything that's according to the Common Core content areas.
And with another student, it may first grade skills they need to work on, or kindergarten skills. It all depends on what the child needs to work on.
Yep. And I can show you a couple more reports just to see. So that one was that was considered to be the diagnostic report. And so that one has the most data on it, but there are lots of things like you can look at, see if I can get the standards mastery. Like if you really wanted to look at the specific Common Core standards, you can dig into this. And so this is class wide, this is where they are now. And then the white would be where they would be at the end of the year in the curriculum. So, and you can dig into these, like I can't do it right now because this is just something that STAR has generated, but you can click on this little icon right here, the triangle, and it'll break it down into how each child did individually in your classroom.
And you also can see like if this is something that the whole class needs to work on, or is this something that just needs targeted instruction? So it's really nice that way, because sometimes we just need to address the class because everybody has that misconception.
And there's parent reports. This is, I don't know if I can show you this one. Hopefully it'll come up. It's the progress monitoring. So I really love this, and the teachers love it because it's able to see if you make it so that you can see no matter how many times the student has taken the test, it'll give you like a projection of how they're doing. And if you set a goal for how many points you want each child to make for between each screening, that's where this blue line is coming from. That's what their goal was. And actually this example, the student went above. And
so
then
you can see in that they started off as, I would say, I use the yellow as our tier 3, like they're more than a grade level behind. And then they progress so that they're more of a tier 2 where they're on watch. They probably need some help with grade level material, but they don't need the as intensive in targeted instruction.
Yep. So there's tons. I can continue on with all of their reports, but I don't too much more of your time. But the last thing I just wanted to show you was the STAR custom. And this is what some of the teachers have used this year, and I use it a lot as an interventionist, but this just allows you, I don't know if I can make it a little bit bigger so you can see it a little better. It allows you to really choose assignments and give it to the students so that they have extra practice in between the assessment windows.
And this is where you could make certain assessments to track a particular standard the student's working on. So you could make assessments and give them every week, however you want to track that.
Yep. And that's really just a quick overview of it, but we've used it. Our teachers like it because it's just a quick thing. It's nothing that takes a long time the kids have studied for 2 years. They understand what it's all about. It doesn't take them a lot of time to do it. It doesn't take out of their day as long, or so I think it's going to help us really continue with our targeted support.
And it also has really helped the kids to get engaged in their learning. We share the scores with the students, especially in the older grades, and they're really trying to improve. And we've had students say, can I do that again? I just wasn't focused that time. So it's really nice to see, and kids want to see how they did. So it's one of those immediate things. We can pull it right up afterwards and show them. They can see that little line graph to see if they've gone up or if they had a dip.
So that's evidence, Jen, of Marzano's, one of Marzano's high yield instructional strategies is centered on goal setting with students. And it's a very effective instructional strategy. I just want to take a minute to commend Enosburgh Elementary for piloting this program first, the STAR 360 piece. It has grown since their initial pilot year, and I'm very excited that next year, pre-K-12, we will all be using the STAR 360 assessment tool as part of our common assessment plan. And that is perfectly in alignment with our shift to having a digital assessment tool, EduClimber, to be able to do much better reporting on how individual students and how groups of students are doing across the supervisory union. So EduClimber is going to be able to take the data right from STAR 360 and pull it right in seamlessly into that tool. So it's exciting, really good work, very connected to the MTSS system work that we're doing across the organization. So I thank you all for bringing this tool to us, because I think it's helping beyond Enosburgh Elementary. It's going to be helping in all schools with all students. So
I have a question. So who, when you have the data sets, is it just teacher specific looking at their own students? Is it teacher working with intervention? Is it grade bands of teachers? Like, who's looking at the data?
It really depends on what team, Polly. Like, a lot of time, like I have access as an interventionist, I have access to the whole entire school. So I can look at any child at any moment. But, for right now, only classroom teachers can see their own students. But if they wanted to, I could pull up a report that shows all of their grade and look at it at the same time. It really just depends on what we're looking at and what the purpose of the data is that we're using.
And this information often is looked at PLCs too. But I also, it helps me keep track of how the kids are doing and seeing where there's a need. So the teachers definitely use the data to adjust their instruction. The interventionist, this is how they find their goals for the student.
Right. And so, Lynn, you were talking about using this district-wide potentially. And so I just see this as like a great way, we talked about equity and alignment of schools, is to basically look at the same apples to apples data, right? And then I see that as a definitely first step. That's awesome. Good job.
And the cool thing about it is like, if there's a student that's performing really, really high, you're going to see all the standards that they're meeting. Like I've had a fourth grader before that was reading at an eighth grade level. So there's like not a ceiling to that, which is really cool, because then you are able to see, even though they're in that fourth grade level, they are continuing to keep progressing beyond where, they originally started. So.
And that's a good point, Amber, because we look at the growth each time. So even if a student is reading at an eighth, they do give a grade level. We don't always look at that. We look more at the Stay9 score. But if they're reading at a higher level and that student didn't make progress, that's a red flag for us. So we're going to be just as concerned about that. Like, hey, there wasn't growth. Every time we do this assessment, we look for growth, and we like to see 60 points.
30.
30. Look at me.
Don't double it. You're making that expectation higher. We're getting there, but 30 for now.
But we have seen over 100 points between one assessment and the other quite often.
Yeah.
So that it's equally as important for every student in this school to show, because I know we're all about meeting the standard, but we're really all about growth, because not everybody's going to be there at the same time. So as long as the kids are growing, every student, then we're golden.
Mhm.
And that's what I was going to say when I forgot that I muted, Polly, to your question about how we use the data in terms of schools. Like, I wouldn't want it to be something where we're using it for the purpose of comparing necessarily, but I really think that there's value in terms of looking at practice. And I think that there's value in terms of teachers coming with the data to the table to have those conversations, like highly effective professional learning community teams do. And at the same time, what Jen just said was key. Because if we think about a wise principal said to me maybe a week or so ago, I showed a video to board members last year about the starting line, right? Or I don't know if some of you remember that, where all of the kids line up at the starting line and they ask students to take a step forward if your parents are still married. And they ask students to take a step forward if you have never had to worry about food, right? So it just demonstrates that everybody starts in a really different place. Like, once the start of the race takes off, everybody's in a very different starting point. So the whole goal of this is to look at, no matter where you are, measuring that growth over time, because we've got to make, for some kids, we've got to make 2 years worth of growth for more than a year, right, in order to catch them up. So this is a helpful tool for us to keep our eye on that part of the goal setting process as well.
Mhm. All right. Well, if anyone doesn't have any more questions, I'm going to scoot out.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time to let me present.
I think we have Joseph up next.
Yes, yes. Well, and it's Joseph and also Tim Trevithick, Enosburgh Falls High School assistant principal, here with me tonight. And on the heels of this wonderful presentation that Amber and Jen just gave on Star 360, the theme for tonight seems to be assessment tools and the what and the how and the why we have them. We began this academic year with a theme of two things: connection and resilience. And both the EFH leadership team and our admin team worked collaboratively this year to identify what our data collection system is and how we can improve, because it was so clear to us that we needed to get much better at data collection across the board, so it would help us improve, inform and guide our practice. And so that's what we started looking into. So this evening, Tim is going to give us a presentation on the Engage assessment tool. And it covers the social emotional aspects of gathering data. This comes at a time in our evolution here, both locally at our school and also in the district, when the AOE had tasked our district and the schools to come up with a COVID-19 recovery plan. So we were already in the process of looking at ways that we can collect data, both academically and social emotionally. So it came at a good time, and it gave us a chance to dive more deeply into that work. So without saying any more, I'm going to turn the spotlight over to Tim, who has a presentation on Engage, and he can inform us all about that.
Thank you, Joseph. Good evening. In fact, Amber and Jen's presentation could have been planned better. And trust me, we didn't plan it. So this
Right.
is.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm saying, did those guys talk before this? Because it so nicely dovetails into this next presentation.
So I'm going to share my screen. Let me get back here. So beyond just connection and resilience, Joseph and I continued the conversation with our faculty in our school, really about how well we know our students. We're always looking about how well do we understand our students? How well do our students know themselves? And we're really pushing for that narrative and what is the story? And throughout this year, we've always been thinking about unique perspectives, and that an individual story is one thing, but a complex story really paints that picture. And So as Amber and Jen talked about, there's a lot of data around academic and proficiencies, and I'm so thankful that the district is moving towards a common assessment and STAR 360. The one thing that in education, I think all of us know that some things come and go and come back again. And around social emotional learning, it's been around forever. But now with the help of Castle and a lot of research, that we're understanding the social emotional learning is the foundation of not only academic success, but life success. And so how well do we know our kids and our students around social emotional well-being? And this year could have been better in terms of really forcing us to look at data and how do we know our students, not just like anecdotally, but in terms of the data. And we all know that relationships are the cornerstone of what we do. And so how can we use data as a powerful tool then to augment those relationships? So Joseph and I looked at different assessment tools or screening tools, and we stumbled upon the Engage School. So Engage School started up 2 years ago. It's a Vermont company, I think founded by some educators, and really we're trying to ask those questions about how well we know our students. So they developed their own tools, the WellBeing Survey and Engagement Survey. And so I had that, but I already talked about that. We know that when basic needs are met, like feeding our kids, then they can focus on the social emotional, and then they can focus on the academic and hopefully be successful. And so we were thinking about data. And so we reached out to these folks and really looked at different platforms. The Engage School surveys are free, which is a bonus for right now, because they're in the beta phase. I'm going to click out of here, and I'm going to share this. Oops, wrong one.
And while Tim's doing that, if we notice that pyramid model closely matches Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that's very connected to the work that all of us have been doing district-wide with Gen Pet Node.
So the Engaged Schools, their surveys are really founded in their Search Institute's 40 developmental assets, which has been around since the 80s. And the 40 developmental assets are really thinking about and focused on enhancing protective factors and trying to reduce risk factors, right? So the more protective factors students have in their lives and they can build, potentially they're going to be more successful. And if you can reduce the risk factors, then again, vice versa. So this is a foundation of their surveys. And I'm going to switch to this screen. So we dove into the WellBeing Survey in February. And as we all know, we know students who are struggling. This has been a unique year in terms of isolation, anxiety, a lot of difficult things that students and adults are having to deal with. So the WellBeing Survey is really focused on the SEL and students' well-being. And as you can see here, this is a heat map. And you all can see the heat map?
Yeah.
Okay, so are people familiar with the heat map? So just quickly, the darker the area, the more responses. And so more often, all these questions, we want to see a strongly agree or agree. And if we saw or when students respond to disagree or strongly disagree, then there's area for us to really focus on. And we use the WellBeing Survey, really as a net, if you will, to catch any kids who we didn't know previously, who are struggling, for our school counselors or advisors. And we actually were able to catch a lot of kids and to have some conversations and reach out to families and try to develop interventions. So I can't show, I haven't asked permission because of FERPA to show you a student, but I can tell you, so for us as perspective for Joseph and I and the school counselors, these are the advisors right here. So we can see which advisors are doing a really good job in terms of engagement with their advisees and encouraging them, and who are we needing to encourage a little bit more to reach out to their students? Hey, can you complete the survey? Because for advisors, they get to see only this information, and this is a really great tool for them to start conversations. And we were developing capacity with our advisors to say, okay, if there's a concerning response, the school counselors are going to know, but please reach out as well. And we can try to figure out how to support you in that conversation, or we're going to let the school counselors in connection with NCSS to have those conversations. So this is what we did in the February, and we got about 60% participation rate, which was great. We are just working on the engagement survey, and this is a little different. This is about essentially student engagement at school, the students' perspective and experience at our high school around student voice and choice, around co-curriculars. And so the cool thing about this one is that they have, why is it going like that? Let's see this. Okay, I did ask permission for a student, Cyrus Blaney, and he gave me permission and his mom to show the questions, as you can see right here, which are great. So as you can see, this is really about school and coursework and his responses. Underneath is questions about connections, adult connections and voice and respect. So am I treated with respect by administration? Co-curriculars, out of school time and activities. Questions about friends and family outside of school. So the really great things about these tools, especially the engagement survey that we're finding, is that there's multiple grain sizes in terms of data. Okay, so just like Amber was talking about MTSS for academically, with this engaged survey, we can go really macro, larger grain size, and think about programs, right? Programmatic stuff. So to enhance your educational experience, what opportunities might you be interested? You know, when I'm looking at this and I'm diving through, I see a lot of internships. I see a lot of other experiential learning. So for us, for Joseph administration and the adults, okay, how do we expand? How do we work with the flexible pathways or the work-based coordinators with Cole Hollow? How do we work that in terms of developing more program for our students? So, and at the micro level, we're really looking at interventions for students around connections, adult connections. So this is a really great tool that we're diving into. We're just first year. We did the well-being again in the February. We are in the first week of doing the engagement survey right now. Our goal is to actually do the engagement survey both in the fall and spring, so we can get the baseline data. And as you all know, data without context doesn't really mean anything, so we need to put context to it. And so we're really excited with this tool. We're hoping, I might reach out to the engaged schools. As Lynn shared about EduClimber, I'm wondering how we can, if EduClimber can work with engaged schools to actually upload it, so then it can develop that learning profile or that student profile. It would be a beautiful, beautiful tool that would work really well, both for the academic and then the social emotional piece.
And I do know there's an SEL side to the EduClimber tool.
Yep.
I just don't know if this works with it or not.
That would be great, Lynn. That's the ideal.
How well do you think disengaged students participate in an engagement survey?
I think that's a fair question. I know that we probably won't get a lot of remote students. I think our attendance says a lot this year, Rick. I know that I'm trying to get as much reach out as we can with all our students. I think it says something about disengaged students, period, right? That so the more that we can reach out to pull them in, the better. So.
Yeah, COVID has certainly been challenging in so many ways and interfered with a lot of access to things for so many kids. But at the same time, COVID has come along at a time that has given us a chance to dive more deeply into what we have in front of us and improve our practice. A lot of the conversations we're having this year might have been on hold for a year or two or even longer if we hadn't had this come along. So it's kind of like being dealt a bunch of lemons, and what do you do with it? You make lemonade. And I have found this to be really exciting. The teachers like it too, and the kids have enjoyed it. There have been a lot of benefits to this interim time, this sort of respite from the normal, if there is such a thing. And we're very excited about moving into next academic year and utilizing all that we've learned and what our students have learned about our practice in general across the board. The other thing I like about these tools that we're talking about this evening, both the academic and the social emotional, it aligns us more in terms of our partnerships and collaboration with other schools. And I feel like, I've had a whole lot more conversations with Beth O'Brien and Nate DeMar because we have to. We can't just work in isolation. We have to be collaborative. And the information we're finding out on these surveys and in gathering the data helps us share more resources, share human capital, and look at how we practice across the board as a whole district. And I feel that's super important because that's when a school system merges, it takes time for these relationships to build and relational trust and all of that. And I know that I can get on the phone at any time or email or text my colleagues in any of my sister schools, and they are there for me. And that's been real exciting.
So I think ultimately we're really excited about, so we'll have the aggregated data and then developing systems of how do we really dive into it and disaggregate, and what can we really glean from this information to support our students and better understand our students. So.
Yeah, it's such a support for the MTSS system, and that's just real exciting. And that's something we've been growing and nurturing a lot this year. Also focusing a lot, it supports our EST, which is embedded in the MTSS. It dovetails into the portion of graduate work. It's like that silver thread that connects all of these efforts. They're not fragmented into separate silos. They're part of a larger whole. And we all know that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So it's been a good year with this. And Tim, I want to thank you in front of everybody for finding Engage and bringing that to our school. I know that your colleagues in your former life, academic life, were very helpful in assisting us with this.
Thank you both, Tim and Joseph. It was almost like you planned to complement the elementary schools.
I know.
Yes, thank you both. Anybody else have any questions for them? Hearing none, are you good, Joseph and Tim?
Yeah, we're fine. Thank you for listening and allowing us to report out on this stuff.
Absolutely, thank you. Anytime. So moving on, Morgan, you're up next.
Thanks. Mine can be fairly quick. I sent you the financial report by email yesterday, I believe. I think we are going to be ending the year close, but I don't have any worries at this point in terms of going over. Just remember that we went into this budget year with $500,000 of fund balance that we essentially used to buy down the tax rate. And I don't think that we're going to have that going into the year following. So just a heads up on that. We probably won't be doing any big early summer, get it done and build by June 30th projects. And this is largely due to the loss of tuition kids over what we had budgeted, probably in large part to COVID. I put on my agenda the capital reserve fund. And so we now have, based on the voter approval in March, $500,000 in a capital reserve fund that can be used for any of your 6 buildings. I think at some point you're going to start hearing from your principals who will have ideas on how we can spend that money. That may be coming as soon as 10 minutes from now. And I think as a board, at some point, you're going to want to have a conversation about how you're going to triage those projects and where you're going to put those priorities and what criteria you're going to use for that. We don't have to have a lengthy discussion tonight. I know that Lynn's got facilities management on her agenda as well, and I'm happy to leave it at that for now and be around if her conversation wends its way to that topic. But I just didn't want to lose it, so I threw it on your agenda.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else?
If you don't have any questions, I can be done.
I'm good. Anybody else have any questions for Morgan?
I have one question, and I might have read the report wrong, but on your financial report, I think it was building plant, or it might not have, it was off by a lot, or we were off by a lot.
By a lot, in terms of dollar amount or percentage?
Both. It was percentage, I believe.
Okay, I can pull it up.
Let me see. And it's the one that jumped out at me, and that's the only reason why I ask.
Was it district level or was it at a specific school?
See, I should have had my, let's see. Let me open it up. I can spot it when I get there. It was where was it? It was a huge number too.
So the grand total
it was
line?
the operations of buildings on page 3 under, Richford Elementary. Am I reading that right?
So we are definitely over there. My suspicion is that it has to do with summer work last year around the abatement project that we did, but I can look into that while you go through the rest of the agenda, and I can hop in on Kelly's and
the roof. Morgan, did the roof go under that as well? The roof
that might have been.
That's what I was thinking after you just said that.
I'll check the timing on that.
Okay, well, Morgan looks, so go to Lynn.
Okay. So I can't go as fast as Morgan did, but I will try not to be too lengthy today. So I'll start out with personnel, and I do have some updates to what I sent to you in your packet, because I will say that your principals are being very effective in terms of how quickly they are filling positions and going through the process of screening candidates and interviewing and hiring. So I'm very pleased with how close we are to having all of our positions filled. So I'm looking for approval for some hiring at Enosburgh Elementary. Jessica Tandy is being hired to teach kindergarten. Kim St. Pierre, who is currently in kindergarten, is moving up to grade 5. At Enosburgh High School, Amanda Lee for a school counseling position. Catherine Brown for English. At Richford Elementary, Diana Springfield for 4th grade. Courtney Scarr for halftime guidance, and that's a position that's being shared with Montgomery Elementary School. So they're hiring a full-time person and splitting that person between the 2 schools. We're also hiring, this is not for action, but just as an FYI, Lauren Holt under the SU budget, and she's going to be halftime special education and halftime intervention at Richford Elementary School. So I don't need action on that one. But wanted to make sure you knew. And at Richford Junior Senior High School, Marie Bro has been hired as a part-time custodian. So I'll be looking for the board to make a motion to hire Tandy, Lee, Brown, Springfield, and Scar.
I'll make the motion. I got it.
Motion
I'll
made
make
by
the motion.
Rick. So Sarah,
Aye.
Holly,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So approved.
Okay. And then in terms of resignations, we have Alyssa Wheeland from Enosburgh Elementary and Michaela Mativier from Richford Elementary have both submitted their resignation. So I would ask the board to approve their resignations.
I'll move.
Motion made by Polly. Sarah,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Polly,
Aye.
and I. Motion moved.
We have one retirement. Larry Oga is retiring after, I think, 20 years working as the head custodian at Enosburgh Elementary School. So it asked the board to make a motion to accept Larry's retirement request.
I'll move.
Motion made by Polly. Sarah,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Polly,
Aye.
and I'm an aye.
Next is informational. So we still have some positions that are open, and principals, please chime in if I miss anything here. In terms of open positions at Enosburgh Elementary, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but right now you have a head custodian position and a pre-K position. At Enosburgh High School, we're looking for band, health, and anticipated PE. And at Richford Elementary, they're looking for a 0.6 librarian, and Kelly is also partnering with Montgomery on that position. So Montgomery is looking for a 0.4. So we're going to be hiring a full-time librarian to split between those two schools. Richford's also looking for a preschool teacher, and Richford Junior Senior High School has an anticipated Spanish position open.
And at the high school, we're also looking for a math interventionist. That's advertised as well.
Okay.
What's the pre-K at Enosburgh Elementary? Is that a new position or is that a fill?
No, one of the pre-K teachers is actually going to Montgomery. So she's going to fill an existing position.
Oh, got you. Okay.
It's that time of the year where we see
The
some
shift.
shuffling within the SU and then some people leaving the SU. So
And do you need a motion on those?
no, that's informational.
Okay.
The next part is also informational. So it's in your report. Those were the people who requested extensions on their contracts for a variety of reasons. So you've got two at Cold Hollow, Hungerford and Brophy, Enosburgh Elementary, Sales and Maciag, and the high school, Ulrich, Larson, and Lumbra. At the elementary school at Richford, it's Liz Ward, and at Richford Junior Senior High School, I don't know how to say his last name, Beth, Govani?
Govani.
Okay. So that's just informational for all of you. Those folks have until May 15th before they have to sign their contract. So the next is a leave request. So we have a teacher who's been at Enosburgh High School for quite some time. And this teacher is going to be having a second baby and would like to be able to be home for a semester with the baby. So the leave that is being requested would be for the entirety of the first semester. So under FMLA, the teacher is allowed to take 60 days of leave. So this teacher is asking for an expansion of that and extend it to an additional 39 days of unpaid leave. So it would be a total of 99 days. So what we're asking for the board to do is to approve 39 unpaid days for Aaron Kusan for next school year.
I'll make that motion. Unless anybody wants to discuss.
I was just thinking, was this what we had lots of discussion about a year ago or so? The unpaid leave request? Not that I'm questioning, I'm just trying to remember if this is similar to what we were talking about back.
Yeah,
was-
whether we approve all or none. And we landed on the all, right? Yeah.
Well, I don't think that it was necessarily connected to the FMLA piece. I think
No,
that-
it was not. It was just about unpaid leave in particular. But we have in the past approved unpaid leave for people who have wanted to extend their FMLA.
Right.
That's just my remembering as well.
You're right.
Okay, I'm good with that. So motion has been made by Polly. Sarah,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Polly,
I
and I am an aye, so motion carries.
So under student, I have an annual in-district transfer report for the 21-22 school year. So this is your first annual because your policy went live this year post-merger. So there is an error on that report that I didn't tune into until today. So in the first column, it is about the students where they're coming from and which school they're going to. I had reported 3 8th graders and 1 7th grader. It should just say 3 8th graders there. So the 7th grader is reflected lower. So we have 3 students going from Richford Junior Senior High School to Richford Middle School to Enosburgh Middle School. 1 student going from Enosburgh Middle School to Richford Junior Senior High School. And we have a homeschool family who had previously been in Richford, who they're going to be using this choice policy to go back to Enosburgh. So there is a 7th grader, a 3rd grader, and a 5th grader. We have a 4th grader and a 5th grader going from Richford Elementary to Enosburgh Elementary. And there's a family previously lived in Fairfield, and they've never been enrolled in the Richford schools. They've just moved, and they're going to exercise the choice for a 1st grader. So that's the first in-district transfer report. Are there any questions?
Yeah, the Fairfield one threw me. So they live in Fairfield, but they moved to Richford.
Correct. And because of COVID, we've granted some people the ability across multiple schools throughout the state to finish out in their home school. So I suspect that this is what's happened here, that the student has been able to just finish out in Fairfield.
Okay, so the request where I'm stuck is where the request they want to go to. They're moving to Richford. They want to attend which school?
Enosburgh.
Oh, okay, I missed that part. Okay.
Next up is just more of an FYI. I've been hearing at some of the state level meetings that as part of the American Recovery Plan, there's discussion about potential infrastructure funding for schools. So what I think I understand is that infrastructure has been centered on things like roads and bridges and things like that, and schools have always been excluded from that revenue. However, I'm hearing that is likely to be expanded to include schools. I don't know what amount of money we're talking about, and I don't know, how that would be distributed across the country. So I'm just putting that out there as an FYI, because we may find ourselves in a position where we do have some money that we could put towards improvements. And that it's kind of what Morgan pointed to earlier, is we'll have to be able to figure out how we prioritize what those capital improvements really should be targeting. So I just wanted to put that there. And then I gave you the heads up in my notes that I wanted to talk about, we have a situation. When we first merged, I brought to the SU board the idea of a facilities director across the SU, someone that would kind of have a lens on the current state of all facilities and, be in charge of management and training and all of those things as a kind of how we run food service. So there was an interest at that time to look at it through the lens of the SU. The NMV side of the district felt very strongly that they wanted a facilities director on their side, because we had, in those small schools, administrators that didn't have a lot of experience in terms of dealing with facilities issues, that were making pretty big decisions around facilities. So they made the investment. They have a facilities director on that side. In Richford, I think when Richford was still a single district, they made the decision to hire a facilities manager that has some oversight between both of the schools in Richford. When Enosburgh was still a single district, we had a conversation about, do we look at this through the lens of facilities, having a facilities manager on the Enosburgh side? And at that time, there wasn't an interest in doing that. So what the situation we're in now is that you have head custodians in all of your buildings, but there's no one in Enosburgh who's really looking at facilities from that higher elevation of, you know, how does this play across multiple facilities? So I wanted to just open a conversation with this board to say, this is a time through attrition, right? You have a head custodian who's leaving. We believe that we can reduce the staffing needs at the elementary school if the facilities piece comes off the plate there. And if there was someone at a supervisory level who could take on more of that facilities management. So I'm asking you to have a conversation as a board about whether or not you think this might be a good time for us to think about either having someone attending to facilities management in the town of Enosburgh, or looking at, is this the right time for you to be thinking as an ER board? Do you want to consider having someone who would be looking at this through the lens of the entirety of all of the facilities in the district?
Didn't we have that conversation after we had that conversation after we merged?
Right, and at
Didn't
that
we?
time, yeah.
Because I haven't been on the board. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
We did, and it was kind of, we were going to stay status quo. And I think we're at the point where I don't know what's the right step. I don't know. I'm kind of torn on it. Like, do we, I get where you're going, Lynn. Like, do you have a facilities manager in Enosburgh for 1, 2, 3, however, 3 or 4 buildings down there? Or do we have one person in charge of all of our buildings? I'm probably right now leaning towards having somebody just in Enosburgh, but I don't know. I'd like to see, like, number of people today, how many people we have in each building, and then potentially if we went with an overall director, how many people would we have? Would we still, would that person be doing any tasks, or would they just be managing and that's it?
I think that I wouldn't think that they'd be doing cleaning tasks. But I think that they definitely would have more, they'd take on more of the responsibilities of the facilities management and training, and, making sure that you're doing all of the preventative maintenance, and, getting more of that into like a streamlined process. I do think that we have some positions like that you do, and I'm not going to attach names to this because we wouldn't know who it would be. So in theory, if you decided to hire one to oversee the Enosburgh and Richford district, there's a position in Richford that you probably wouldn't need anymore. And I know that there's a piece of the position at Enosburgh Elementary School that you wouldn't need anymore. In terms of assessing if you would still need the same level in the other buildings, I think we'd have to take a look and do an inventory of what's the capacity of the staffing levels that you currently have. And I think that is one of the things in terms of facilities management, is that part of their role, to make sure that, you're not overstaffed in one space and understaffed in another, that you really can look at it as a whole and try to create equity across the schools.
So would that give the manager more flexibility? Let's say, you have 2 people out sick in one building, that they can shift personnel when they need to, if there was an overall manager of all of the buildings.
I mean, you are one district, so I think we could look at it that way. And to be honest with you, we've already done that this year. We've done that through COVID, has forced us to look at how we're using our human resources as a whole. And when we've had situations where a group of people have had to be out in one school, we've said, okay, who do we have and who can we deploy where? So kind of like what we do with food service, you would do that at that district level, and you'd have that ability to make sure that it's covered. And I think that the one piece of that it does is it does take some things off the principal's plate, which I'm certainly in favor of, because these leaders have more on their plate than most people could imagine. And I think it's hard when you have someone who's out for a period of time in a key role in one of the buildings. You end up with having a leader who's taking on a whole lot of responsibility around facilities. And when you don't have someone above that could say, here, we can help this way, or I could step in and help, it tends to just fall at their feet.
So is the NMV facilities director underworked?
So I see where you're going with that. I know that you have an SU meeting coming up. You certainly could have that conversation at the SU meeting if you wanted to look at it through that lens. But I would not suggest that you like give someone a position. If you're going to make a decision to shift your structure, then you would open the position for whoever was interested in applying for it.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but that it would be it's not the same, I don't think, or at least it is not the same in my mind anyway.
You say more? What do you mean?
Well, yeah, so I mean, if you know, so we would basically have the supervisory union employee, or no, it's NMV, right? Okay, but we can look at that, at maybe moving that up to the supervisory union level, which we originally talked about at the beginning, right? Because we originally had talked about making that a supervisory union position for all our schools.
Correct.
And I didn't know if, now that NMV has had a facilities manager, whether there would be enough time in that person's schedule to take on the role of doing all our schools in the supervisory union. That's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah. I think that's a good question. It's one I think that you could ponder at the SU meeting, certainly.
I think it would certainly change the job, and they would have less hands-on time at any of the schools. Not that that's a good or a bad thing, but it would be a little bit different than the way it's structured now.
How is that position working on the NMZ side? Is it positive? Has it taken a substantial burden away from the principals over there?
I think that, you know, one of the things we just talked about this at the last NMV board meeting, and we hired in the midst of the pandemic, right? We didn't get that position filled until it might have been late October this year. So we don't have I would say in-depth data, because to be honest with you, none of us have had the capacity to seek that. But when speaking with the principals, they're definitely very appreciative of having someone who's really leaning into that kind of work, so that they can step out a little bit and be really focusing on the business of instructional leadership in their schools. So I think it is early on with that position to be able to answer you more directly than that, Kevin.
No, that's fine. That's enough of an answer at this point. Does anybody else have any feedback or discussion? So at this point, I think, should we get more data from you, Lynn, on the number of people that we have in each building, and then we can kind of assess at our next meeting, or are you looking for action tonight?
I mean, your next meeting isn't going to be until June. So I guess what I was hoping tonight is that you'd give a direction, because if it's something that you want in terms of your system, I guess I'm really asking you to look at it through the lens of your system. I think that I can imagine how it could impact some other parts of your system. So I think what you're looking at is would we still need all of the positions that we currently have? And we would have to look at that. But are you needing that before you think about the direction of where you want to go as a district?
Yeah,
Not
so,
necessarily myself, but go ahead, Rick.
yeah. So from my perspective, I guess I'd be looking at from my perspective, if we hire a facilities manager, I don't think we have enough just with our schools for what I'm looking for, so I want to, for a facilities manager, I would like to know kind of that priority thing you were talking about earlier. I need to know, this parking lot is in desperate need. This one can wait a little while, so I need some of that prioritization. And I'm not sure we have enough facilities to justify hiring somebody for that type of level, and then the others, we're almost too small and too big, if that makes any sense to you, I guess. So I'm not sure if we didn't do that, what the actual role of this facilities manager would be, right? So I don't know what the job description is actually, I guess, is what I'm a little unclear about.
If you didn't go to the SU level, Rick, is that what you mean?
Yeah, so if we didn't go to the SU level, I'm a little unclear in my mind what the job description of this facility manager would be. It would certainly entail some of that, but I'm not sure that would be all that he would do. So, I don't know what else he would do, I guess. I'm unclear of what he would do in this position.
So
In part, it would probably depend on who you found. Kelly Bacchus, who's on the NMV side, has skills in some of the trades that we are normally contracting out. So he's able to do some of that work in addition to the kind of overall management piece of it.
Okay, so that's actually the part I'm a little unclear about, right? So,
Right.
I mean, we really shouldn't make the position, we should make the position what we want it, right? I think you said this at another meeting not too long ago, that we should make the position what we want it to be and, fill that position, not adjust the position based on the candidate that applies for the position. You know what I mean?
Right. I think that, if I'm being honest, what I would like to see is I would like to see someone that has the capacity to be looking at the whole instead of all of the individual parts, because right now I know that I don't have a good sense of how the facilities compare because no one's looking at it that way. We have a little bit of that in Richford where we have one person who's kind of looking across two schools and, management through that lens, but then part of that position also has to do with, I think there's some cleaning attached to that or some maintenance attached to that. So I think that we would be looking for someone who really could look at it through that lens in terms of deploying resources. And like I said, making sure that everything's operational, because what I think has happened in some of our places is as there has been turnover with head custodians or administrators even, some of those standards of practice have kind of fallen off and we've lost sight of them because no one is making sure that as a system they're working for everybody. So I think there's that piece. And then Rick, I think that the piece that you just pointed to in terms of what we would need, I think that if there was someone like, we just went through this hiring process this past year. So if we could find someone who had a skill set with the trades and had some experience in a variety of things like HVAC and plumbing or electrical, there's that makes a big difference when you're thinking about some of the things that we generally have to hire out for in our schools that could just be taken care of internally.
So are you thinking that if you have a facilities manager, you wouldn't be hiring a head custodian at Enosburgh Elementary? Is that what you're thinking?
We wouldn't be hiring, yeah. I mean, I think that we would still have someone, kind of like now we still have head cooks in each of our buildings, but it would be a different level of a position because they wouldn't need to be really focused on the facility piece as much because we'd have someone else with that lens.
Okay. So I kind of, at first I was thinking like Rick, thinking it would be kind of silly to have two facilities managers for each district when you could have one SU. That's my leaning, right? But if that's not the case, then I think it makes sense to have, if that's off the table with the SU board, then I think it makes sense to have 2 district facilities managers and not just one in Enosburgh, because then you still have the communication breakdown, opposed to if you're looking for big picture thinking, you have to have the whole picture, right? And so I would think that if you don't have the aerial view of the SU, then the next logical one would be over the district. That's my thought. That's my 2 cents.
I'm kind of swinging around with you, Polly. I'm leaning more in that direction as well at this point. I think it just brings us more towards the, the communication and like an equity piece. Like if that person is responsible for all 5 of our buildings, then they're going to be in tune and know what's going on in each building. And okay, this building needs a $5,000 unit of whatever it is, and then this building needs a $35,000 thing. We need to go at this point, towards the high end one and take care of it. They're going to prioritize, as we discussed.
So I guess the question is the SU conversation off the table? Because if the SU conversation is off the table, then my leaning is toward the district. But if the SU is on the table, so I guess that's what I'm wondering is, can you wait till we have an SU conversation, or what do you want?
I'm wondering if, so you're not meeting until June. Like if you said, we want you to bring this to the SU for consideration to see if this is a position that could be SU level, we could do that. But then I'm wondering, what we've done in the past is we've had some contingency. So if that isn't favorable, if the SU board as a whole doesn't favor moving in that direction, are you in a place as a board where you would say, if that isn't the outcome of that meeting, then we want you to advertise for a facilities person for the entirety of the district?
That's
I guess
how I would think. Yeah, Rick, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'd be, my tendency is to go that way, but if we're not going to hire a person at the SU, I want more of a job description before I'm ready to say it's okay at the more of the district level. I have better clarity in my mind for the SU position than I do the district-wide position, I guess, is where I'm kind of going with that. I'm certainly in favor of having somebody to do it somewhere, but I need a little bit more clarity in my mind for the district position if that's the route we take.
So we would have to create that job description based on the goals that we identify for the position. So that's the part that I'm struggling a little with is.
So that's the part I'm also struggling with is it's not clear in my mind what we're actually looking for this person to do at the district level. I mean, some of the things that we talked about, certainly, but I'm not sure like day to day what this person would really do.
Do you have one for the NMB? Do you have a job description for the NMB guy?
I don't have it in front of me.
But you have one, right? Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I think it's something that we could work on. I would think that it would be the same job description as within the SU, just at a smaller scale. And that would allow more time to be doing more of the maintenance, the day-to-day preventative maintenance and the repairs when they come up. Because we would be looking for someone who had some skill set to be able to do some of those things without having to hire everything out.
Right. So the person that you hire is going to have some sort of mechanical ability, whether they are a skilled tradesman, whether they're a master plumber, master electrician. No, that's not going to be a requirement for the position, but that would be an ideal person, somebody that has one of those trades, I would think.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to get at. Do we want, if we're going to go that route, I would, from what you guys are describing, it would have to be a required, skill for the position.
Are you saying, I'm just trying to understand what you're saying. Are you saying defining which trade in it or which certification in it?
So I don't know if this guy is, so his title is facilities manager, right? So I don't know how much managing he's doing versus actual hands-on work, so is he coordinating working, or is he actually going to do the work? And that is unclear in my mind.
It's both. In terms of how it's working on the NMB side, there's some of the projects that he is licensed and able to do, and there are other projects where he serves as the person that works with Morgan to arrange for the work to happen. So instead of the principal having to be getting bids and working with the contractors, it's that person who's organizing all of that. And then each day there's work within each building that, and I don't know that I could describe what that day-to-day individual work looks like in the building, because again, I think it's more system stuff than saying, this is your responsibility today in terms of, there's no cleaning part associated with this.
Right. So maybe Joseph, Beth, or Kelly, or Nate, who's on here, do you guys have any feedback? Like how much time in your day or week is spent managing or quoting or looking at bids or just reviewing facilities type stuff?
I'll speak first. For me, I am in the middle of a building project for a few things, so I'm spending a little more time than normal, but I've got a very effective, efficient person. So, and that person also does a lot of the work without contracting it out. So for me, not much at all, but I can't speak for others. I will say, one thing that I would suggest, and something that we could put into place for some sort of systematic change, and I'm not sure if it's a quick fix or whatnot, but I'm not sure how often our facility managers or janitors, custodians talk with one another. So I do think there's a place where, once a week, they could really just, sit down together and really do their own needs assessments and things like that, and help each other out maybe more than they have been. But that's something that might be I don't know if that fixes the overall problem, but I do know that when I go over and talk to Doug, I get insight. When Doug comes over and talks to Jeff, I overhear those conversations and good things happen. So, I think if we open up the lines of communication with what we do have, and they were a little bit more willing or change their job description around with what they need to do, I think we could solve some issues. But I'm not sure if that solves everything, but I know that would be something that would be useful.
Okay, thanks, Nate. And Jen, I didn't forget you.
Well, actually, I have to say, right now, I only have 1.5 custodians right now. And I have spent quite a bit of time this year, like with managing like the lead in the water and looking into that and how to do that. There's many aspects that have fallen on me, and I'm new, so I'm have to put extra time into it, but I'm doing a lot of the overseeing of that.
Can I just clarify, you don't mean lead in the water, you mean testing for lead in the water?
Testing for lead in water. Yeah, see, that's how good I am at it.
So I think that speaks to when you have when there's not a system and you're relying on one person, when they have to be out for a period of time, there's no one to manage, and it lands on the principal differently. So I think there was a large part of the reopening plan that also it has fallen on different principals in different ways.
Yeah. At the middle school and high school, Rachel and I collaborate and meet with Doug all the time. He does all the legwork, the supervising of his staff, and he keeps us daily informed. I mean, I speak with Doug every day. I share the same perspective as Nate does around, I've learned a lot from Doug. I continue to do that. And he breaks down every project that's major and keeps me informed of even the minor stuff. So, it gives me a chance to weigh in balance. And then if I need to, I reach out to Morgan 4 questions, and he might say, that's a Lynn question. So it kind of goes up the chain and down the chain. But Doug pretty much handles that. I personally have not had to handle a lot of maintenance or repair stuff myself. Doug and his team are on top of all of that. And as Lynn just said, the huge piece for this crew this year was keeping the building safe and healthy. It was like, and working collaboratively with Kelly Coda, our nurse. That was a big part, and it continues to be a big part of the work.
Well, in Richford, we hired a facilities person, I think 3 or 4 years ago, and historically, the person before him had done some cleaning as well. Like he had done like turning over the cafeteria at lunch at the elementary school. He had like cleaned the gym in the morning. And with the hiring of the new person, that person has not been doing much cleaning at all. I don't think he does at the elementary school, Kelly, does he? And he doesn't at the high school either. And really focuses on preventive maintenance. I talk to him often.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna jump in where Beth left off. He does come down here and check in with me. Also, I mean, he's housed at the high school. He's at the high school much more, but he does come down to the grade school probably once a week, more often, just to check in. There's different projects that are happening down here. We were just talking at the end of last week about the number of different projects that we have on tap, or different things that need to be done at some point. I think that between the 2 buildings, he's pretty out straight with the number of projects that have to happen.
So I just want to say that an advantage of having one person in either the SU or the district is that they could prioritize projects, because we have this money. And I've said to Morgan, like the gym floor at Richford High School, and I'm sure we all have things, but the gym floor was supposed to be refinished or sanded down after 20 years, and it's now been 25 years. But where does that fall in the priority of all of the buildings now that we're one district? I don't know. And who's the person who is really going to make those priority calls when there's nobody that has the total perspective?
Yeah, and I would, same thing at the elementary school. So we also have a gym floor that needs to be redone. And when I was hired, that was on the list. And then COVID happened, and we have cement walkways that are in incredible disrepair. So, part of it is a money thing. Part of it is, as Beth said, how do you prioritize all those? I don't know. It's really important to me, but it may not be important to Jen.
Yeah, because Jen has her own parking lot she has to pave.
Exactly.
Exactly. We've been hearing about the puddle for quite some time.
Same puddle's been there since she got there. And I know about it, and I don't go there very often. Okay, thank you all for your insight. I don't know where this puts us at this point, Lynn.
I don't either.
Yeah, me neither, but from the description of most things, it sounds like this would be more of a management position, or should be more of a management position than an actual hands-on position, I think. But that's, just my take on it.
Right, so maybe it's more of a management, and they managed the people to make sure the work is getting done.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Or projects,
Managing
outside
assigned duties.
contractors. Yep.
Like
Prioritize.
a department head or something.
Prioritize what goes where, that kind of.
And just, I don't know if this is the place to say it, but like, I right now have an advertisement out for a head janitor or head custodian, so I'm not sure how I proceed. Because
I think
facilities manager is going to mean something different than if we don't have one.
So Jen, you had 2.5 total people at one point, right?
Yeah.
And I think what you and I had talked about was that you think that if the facilities management part of it comes off, is it that you think you could do it with 1.5 or 2?
I could do it with 2, but I'm thinking I could actually get away with 1.5. I got to check a little something about lunchtime, but yeah. So 1.5 probably. If I had that person that was overviewing everything.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards talk to the SU. If the SU doesn't fly, hire a district facilities manager. But like Rick was saying, once we make that decision, we be real clear about what are we requiring of this person, right? So there might have to be some hop, skips, and a jump after that decision's made, I guess.
Will the work to design the job description?
Right.
Okay, I
Yeah.
think that's where I'm at. So it sounds like Rick's there, Polly's there. How about you, Sarah?
Yeah, the same. So is it my understanding it's the facility manager that was hired is the SU? And the question is whether they would oversee Richford and Enosburgh as well as what they're already doing? Is it, or did I not get that right?
No.
No.
So really close. You got really close. We wanted to
Okay.
we wanted to hire one at the SU.
Right.
Some of us said no. So then the other district, the NMB district, hired one. And now we
Okay.
want to see if maybe we can move them back up to the SU.
Right. To cover everyone.
But
Maybe.
to cover everyone. But the
Right.
SU might be like, no, we're not sharing. And so if that's the case, then we might go to do our own Richford
Enosburgh one. Okay.
Okay. Did I give you the direction you need, Lynn? Kind of, not really.
Well, are you saying that, are we going to meet again before you give me a direction? Or are you saying that if the SU board moves in that direction and goes as an SU, that's great. And if they don't, are we moving forward with ER facilities?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now I think I've got it.
Okay.
Okay, the last ones are pretty quick. Pandemic response planning, I will say it's huge. It's a ton of work and we're a little bit buried underneath it right now. So we have completed phase 1 of that. So the needs assessment has been completed and you saw that in your board packet. So I don't know if anybody had any questions on the needs assessment. So we're well into phase 2, nearing completion. I would say sometime next week, it should be in more of its final format, not final format, but more finished, more polished format. So then we shift into the stakeholder feedback portion. So you'll be getting a look at that, and a ton of other stakeholder groups are also going to get to take a look at what that looks like in terms of what our COVID response plan looks like for what how we're going to target the needs as we move forward across the next multi-year planning period. So I'd hope that I'd have a draft to show you, but we're just not that far yet. I don't have a draft to be able to share with you yet. So we'll get that to you when we do. In terms of end of the year updates, we have, I know there's been a lot of conversation in both communities, both Enosburgh and Richford, about, how much students have lost during the pandemic and how excited people are to think about how we can celebrate the end of the year, like how we can meet the health and safety guidelines and still be able to celebrate at the end of the year. So I wanted to focus really on the high schools in this meeting. And then if the elementary principals wanted to jump in and share anything, you're welcome to. but could we have Beth and Joseph just give you a really broad, high-level overview of where you are with prom and graduation planning for the board?
Sure. I can go first. I'm going to be super transparent and say this has been a huge learning curve for me, and this ain't my first rodeo. And God bless you, Beth O'Brien, for being my buddy and walking me off the edge a few times around this stuff. You were a big help to me. I was able to laugh and cuss and be real open with you, and it helped me kind of move forward and go, okay, we got this, we'll do it. But thank you, Beth. And so it began, my work around this began with tasking the senior or the prom committee to begin with to start looking at venues. And Beth and I met with the prom committee chair and other folks to hear what where the kids were at. So we tasked them to go scope out all kinds of stuff and come back with us with details. In the back of my mind, I'm still waiting for guidance, which is ever changing, and around numbers and about vaccinations and who isn't vaccinated, all that kind of stuff, and wanting to continue with being hypervigilant around health and safety guidelines that the state is giving. At the same time, being respectful of the vision and the needs of kids who've had a lot taken away. That's a huge balancing act, because you've got all these people with their own opinions, and then you've got social media blowing up and all this kind of stuff. So I also want to include Polly Rico as a support for me too, because I was able to call her last Friday night and say, I think we've got this solved. So we are going to have a prom. And I told everybody that's non-negotiable. It will be on May 22nd. It's going to be held in West Enosburgh outside. It's in the open area, this sort of really pretty Vermont country setting adjacent to the Country Boy Classic venue. It will not be part of that venue. People won't be going inside, but they have given us a great discount on tents, porta potties. There's electricity available, all the things we need that were going to be extremely challenging if we had had it outside at our own soccer fields or at the rec fields here in Enosburgh. So it's the rec fields or the soccer fields was what the kids were originally leaning towards. They had also researched another venue who said, we just won't be able to do it because of health and safety guidelines. So they were able to pull this off with lots of support from the community because they did not have a lot of opportunities to fundraise this year due to COVID restrictions. A few of the kids started to GoFundMe. They got community support. People were rallying around them, and that's still happening. So prom is May 22nd in the evening in West Enosburgh in a really nice location. People won't know they have to wear masks. They have to follow all the guidelines. We have a group of people coming to chaperone and keeping things in order. And I'm sleeping better at night knowing that. So, and we have supports from people seem to be happy, and social media has died down. And I was glad to report that to Kelly on Friday night, to Polly on Friday night. So thank you, Polly. I think we both went into the weekend feeling better about that. I was able to speak with community partners like our town clerk, and people were concerned that somehow this was a loose cannon and it was going to go everywhere. And the kids were going, you tell us you want to hear our voices, and yet we tell you our voices and we're not guaranteed we're going to get it. And I go, welcome to the real world and welcome to the world of a pandemic. So anyway, that's prom. Next, we have on June 9th, we're going to be having our annual graduation practice. We're going to be taking it's the same morning as the VSAC mandatory survey, and that's followed by an outside senior barbecue that we do every year. The following evening, the 10th, we are having senior awards night. We're going to be able to host that in our auditorium safely with a limited number of people invited, and Northwest Access is going to be live streaming that event. So people, family members, friends who would love to be present and can't be because of restrictions will be able to watch it live. It will also be recorded people can also have access to a tape version of that. And we are using that evening to sort of incorporate a more diverse award ceremony, that because some kids are upset about Val and Sal no longer being on the table, and we're looking at other ways to honor kids and a more diverse population of kids receiving awards. So that's still in the works in terms of the faculty and staff are putting those awards together. And then we're having graduation itself on the 12th. We don't have yet the final numbers of what we can have, the numbers we can have in the auditorium, in the gymnasium. There's also thought of maybe bringing it outside. And I'm going to need some guidance and help on that, because, and I've been working very closely with Kelly Coda, who gives me daily updates on what's coming. And then Lynn keeps us informed as well. So we have a couple of options, but the clock is ticking, and I'd like to get something concretized and out to the community ASAP. But it's still about how many numbers of people I can fit in that room. I don't want it to be a sardine can the way it usually is, but I also want to be open to the possibility that we can have more people than just our 85 graduates and two tickets. So again, it's all about vaccinations. It's about guidance. This event is happening in June. The guidelines may be a bit different, a little bit more freed up than they are in May. So I'm watching those figures every day like people watch the stock market. So that's where we're at. And I'm sorry for taking up so much time, but this has been hellish as well as being fun. When it gets resolved, you go, oh, okay, that was worth the work. Now we're happy. Everyone's happy, and social media is no longer blowing up. But when it's blowing up, it ain't pretty. I can tell you that. And I'm just being real with everybody. And Beth's laughing because she heard a different version of this. She heard the outrageous version. Beth, I need your help. Just listen to me.
So Beth, how about in Richford?
So I think that there were several challenges, and people, as soon as the governor and the secretary announced we could have it, they thought we had answers, and we didn't have answers because the guidance was not easy. So if you look at my board report, I had written tentative location was the town hall on June 5th. And we decided June because you could have, you needed 50 square feet per unvaccinated person indoors versus 100 square feet in May. So we thought we're going to push it as late as possible. And then we did the math and found out that was only 43 unvaccinated people on the second floor of the town hall. My kids were fine with the town hall. They were like, it's a beautiful building. We're just glad we get to have something. But then when we found out it was only 43 unvaccinated people, we didn't think we were going to be able to put many kids in there, especially since nobody under 16 would be fully vaccinated at that point. So social media was saying Enosburgh had everything all figured out, and Richford was kind of behind the time. And that's when I called Joseph, and he's like, Beth, it's a lie. Don't believe it. And so I was trying to update people on social media, and Christy Martin, the principal of Sheldon, reached out to me and said, Beth, here's some pictures of our facility. And we have this tent that's up, and we have this like little gazebo, and we have this outdoor seating, and Richford's welcome to use our grounds. So I brought it to the prom committee, who said, I showed them, at first they thought Sheldon School, but then I showed them the pictures of the grounds, and they were like, we love it. And so we're having our prom on May 29th because Sheldon already had an event on June 5th. On May 29th at Sheldon School. We're going to use the indoor facilities in the gym, and then we're going to set up little tents outside with tiki torches and lights, and our theme's going to be Under the Stars. And so the kids seem really happy with that, and it doesn't limit us because it's outside. So that's prom. Graduation is June 11th, and we are going to have a parade followed by an indoor graduation. And here we go again. I'm right now, I sent out a form today of all my graduates, for my graduates, it's a very, very small class, a third of the size of the class behind it, and asked them, how many tickets would you like if you could have the number you wanted? And of those people, how many of those people are vaccinated? And are you vaccinated? And so from there, I think our gym in June, it's 50 square feet per person. That for unvaccinated, I think our gym will hold like 175 unvaccinated. And so we're just trying to do the math based upon that.
I just want to point out that I hope people do not try to compare the number of people that were allowed in one gym per family to another, because it is, for people that don't deal with the guidance on a day-to-day basis, it is incredibly complicated, like they're saying.
It is hard.
It is about that, figuring out the number per square foot, and also the trying to unpack the who's vaccinated and who's not. So I can 100% assure people in both of these communities that these principals are working hard to make this the best celebration for these students that they can, and they will go up to the limits of what they can do, but they're not going to exceed it. They're going to make sure that they're falling within the realm of that guidance. And for some, that may be disappointing because the number might be less than what they had hoped. But I just want to remind people that we get to do something different this year that we weren't able to do last year for those graduates. So, and I think that it is exciting that we are seeing year 2 of new traditions around graduation parades, which seem to be really favorable in our communities. So again, another good thing that has come out of COVID.
I just want to add 2 things. So first of all, spatial relations. I thought 43 people at the second floor of the town hall. Oh, we probably could fit 50 to 60 in the gym. And I thought it was a little bigger. It's 4 times bigger. I don't know how I missed that, but it didn't seem like it was that much bigger to me, but it is. And secondly, I got a phone call last night from an ATV club in Richford, Queen Lil's ATV club, and they told me they wanted to donate $500 to the Richford prom because the kids, like Joseph said, hadn't done any fundraising because number 1, they couldn't, and number 2, they didn't think they were going to have a prom, right? So they really didn't have any cash, so they dropped off a check for $500 today to help out with the expenses. So the community, I think both communities have been very supportive.
Did I remember an email asking board members to come to graduation, or a board member?
That's on my list. So yeah, so I know last year Rick Bartholomew came. I think he wanted to. He also had a son graduating. I mean, you know, board members can come. I know we've got, you know, you, Polly, and Rick and Amy. So last year you decided how that was going to work. I don't want to pick somebody. Lynn, you're about to say something?
Joseph, I think that where we left it at our meeting on Monday is you're going to do the math first.
Okay, good. That's what I was wondering, because I don't feel like we should take this spot if somebody's grandma can't come. Right? So
I think that I am less worried about Richford because of the number of graduates and because of the way they've structured the graduation in the past. For Enosburgh, because they're more sending towns, and Enosburgh has kind of a history of having a board representative from each of those communities, that might not be able to happen this year. It might be minimized, and it might be that of all the members of the ER board, is there one that could help hand out diplomas? But
that's what we
the math first, right?
That is what we did last year, and it was because of those COVID restrictions. So that's why Rick just said I'd go, and he wanted to go, and so everybody was fine with that. But I had students saying, are you going to have board members there and are they vaccinated? And I'm thinking, I said, how do I know? I have a feeling they probably are.
I'm guessing that, Kevin, you have a strong interest in helping with the diplomas in Richford would be my guess.
Yeah, I might be interested.
If there is space in Enosburgh, is there someone that has a connection to graduates in Enosburgh? No, we don't have Amy on here. You don't have all of your board members. I mean, that's something we can always survey for later too.
I do know a fair number of them, but we'll see. We'll cross that. We don't need to cross that bridge yet.
Are you willing, Rick, if there wasn't like a family connection with Amy or any of the other board members, if there was only one, would you be willing?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
So I have one more thing that I wanted to say, that I had already reached out to Jonathan Elwell and told him that we too wanted to do the parade again this year, and that wasn't the issue. But in that outreach to him, I said, is it possible that we could, if we needed to, because of restrictions and it had to be held outside for the benefit of all, could we use the Lincoln Park space that has the covered gazebo? And I know historically there have been many years prior to my arrival where Lincoln Park was used for graduation. It would allow for more access that is outside, but we're perfectly fine in holding it in the gym as well with more restrictions involved. But that's something that we're going back and forth on, and I feel we need to make a decision on it very soon.
Okay, so I think that is it in terms of end of the year, and I think Jen and Kelly had talked through doing some outside events, I think is what you were centered on. And those are less about graduations and more about moving up in more of a less formal, but still having families and students celebrate in some way. Is that a good enough summary?
That's a great summary.
So I think that the last thing I have is just very brief legislative update. I'm not finding much time right now to be on top of that. So I'm being transparent with you. I'm sure there's more happening in Montpelier that I'm tuned into. I saw my eye on the literacy bill and I'm interested in the community schools bill as well. I don't know where that's at now. I do know that the weighting study has been sent to a study committee to come back with some recommended actions and timelines. And the last time I checked in, that's where that was at. Other than that, I don't have anything else for you.
Okay. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
On to the reports. Kelly, anything to add?
Nope, it's all informational.
Thank you. Beth?
I just wanted to thing under other. Today, Jen and Amber presented on Star 360, and my first year in Richford, or my second year in Richford, we started with a very similar assessment called MAPS, which we've been using for years. And the reason we went with MAPS at the time is because K through 6 did not have Star 360 did not have the K through 12 option. They only had it for elementary school at the time. And so now they have, we considered when other schools were piloting last year, moving to Star 360, we decided, my leadership team and I decided that we didn't want to add anything new for teachers. So we just stayed with MAPS, which we like. The reports are very similar, but my leadership team had Leslie Rainville from Sheldon, who used to be a Richford teacher, present on Star 360. And we've made the decision that we're going to Star 360 next year so that we can have similar data across the district. And if somebody moves from one school to the other, that the reports will be the same and the information will move more easily. So I also invited Kelly and her coaches to attend, and I think they're going to Star 360 as well. But I just wanted you to know that we've been doing similar things in Richford for about 6 years now. So that was just informational.
Okay, thank you.
There's
Jen?
something to add to Beth's report. Polly, your question from earlier, the reason that that line is overspent is in large part due to the HVAC work that we've been doing at several of the schools. It was a big project at Richford High School, and that is actually, that part of it is grant funded. So you'll see that as, that it appears that it's over budget, but that's because we have additional revenue coming in.
Yay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Morgan. Now, Jen.
All informational.
Okay, thank you. Lisa is not here tonight, correct? I don't see her.
No.
We're transitioning back to Rachel. I think today might have been Lisa's last day, and Rachel will be back on Monday.
Okay, good. Joseph?
Basically informational. That's it.
Okay,
Everything.
Nate?
I've got a couple things. One, just our award ceremony is June 2nd. It's a Wednesday morning. It'll be at the Enosburgh Auditorium. All the kids will be there, and then we'll live stream it or edit it and stream it for parents. I do need a regional advisory board member from this group. I'll reach out to one of you. I won't mention Kevin's name, but he couldn't make it happen. So someone besides Kevin, if I could get a volunteer, it's going to be at least one more meeting in June, and then potentially a monthly meeting for a while until we get our feet off the ground. But pretty low pressure. So if you could either have somebody, or if you could find a representative, and maybe you could work with Lynn on that. But if anybody wants to be on our regional advisory board, I'm taking volunteers.
What do you advise? Would it say more about what it does?
It's the regional advisory for you'd be a good one, Polly, because it's for Northwest Tech Center and for Cold Hollow Career Center. It's the overseeing of our programs, making sure that we're connected to the job markets in the area. There'll be 3 employers. There's Lynn, Bill Campbell, and Julie Reginbald, the superintendents that we serve, and then board members from all the sending school districts. Kat Barnard is the NMV one from us, and yeah, so it's budgeting and program quality.
And you're promising it's once a month?
And no more than once a month.
Oh, you've heard this before. Don't do it. You've heard it before.
It'll go to it's by state rule, it's quarterly, but we're new, so it might take us a few extras to put in running, but monthly at most.
So what are we talking, like nights, days? What are we talking?
We had a meeting today at 8:30, but I'll be a doodle poll tomorrow once I have a name from today, and it'll be at the best convenience that we can make it for you.
Okay, I'd entertain that.
Thank you.
I'll nominate Polly.
Thank you. And then the last thing is, as I'm doing the permitting process and the building stuff, we're moving the pole barn and doing some work, I'm finding a need for a clerk of the works, and working with Morgan. The 2 that have done work for us before are fully retired. And I'm wondering if I could have the blessing to put Seth Hungerford, a construction teacher, and have him work some extra hours outside of contracted hours to clerk some of the building project needs that I have. And I'm not sure if you talked to the other 2 retired ones, if they have said anything about Seth, but.
I spoke with Steve Pitkin, who was the clerk at the expansion in Montgomery, and we have used him, Larry Letourneau, for every project up until Sheldon, which is when they told us that they retired. Steve has worked with Seth prior to him coming to us on a construction project in Derby. So I just asked his sense about whether that would be something in Seth's skill set. He said that it was. He thought that Seth could do the work. We had a really hard time finding anyone to do Sheldon. We did eventually find somebody, but he was so overtaxed, I think that he's not going to be nibbling on any projects for us again. The challenge with Seth, of course, is that he's also on payroll. He does have a company, and we are, if you guys are okay with it, we'll just figure out a way to, one, to pay him legally, and two, to ensure that there's not going to be any question that he's double dipping in terms of hours. So if he's on the clock as a teacher and he's doing things that look like clerking, he's not going to charge us for those. So, I can try to answer any questions on that, at least for the first two phases as we've envisioned the project, the work that we are really planning on doing without any outside funding. There are no requirements to bid out his services. If we do end up tagging ESSER money, or if we do end up using some of this infrastructure money that is anticipated to come down, the restrictions on everything get pretty significantly harder to meet. So we would take a pause at that point. In general, where we can go out and hire whatever architecture firm we want. We're with the channel that we think the federal money is coming down, we wouldn't be able to do that, and every step of the way would need to be bid out, and we would need to follow Davis-Bacon, which is an act that ensures that all of the people on your project are getting paid a specific wage tied to your region. And that may impact whether we can use students on those later parts of the project.
So do you need a motion, or anybody have any discussion about using Seth?
I don't think we need a motion. I think we just want to inform you and give you, the opportunity to raise any questions that you have.
Okay, I'm okay with it if they feel that he's qualified, and let him do it.
Okay, and that's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Nate. I see Gab's here. If I don't see her on our list, just want to recognize her if she has anything that she wants to contribute tonight.
Yeah, I was actually just going to add, this isn't the SU board, so I don't usually report to you all, but we also used Star 360, and one of the benefits with the VLA has been that it goes between schools really easily. So for example, we had a student move to Sheldon, and when Leslie called me and asked, about the student, I said, oh, it should be in your Star 360 data already. So when they move in Power School, they move in 360, which is really, really handy. So it's just another benefit of having it in the district.
Good. Thank you. Now on to board business. Next meeting is June 8th. And then Rick, you asked about the music program that's on here.
Yeah, so we accepted a retirement from Andy Frappier a couple of months ago. And he had actually sent us a letter. And in that letter, there was some, I guess, maybe frustration about how at least he felt the music program, or the current system, was not conducive to having a quality or even really a functional music program. And I wanted at some point in time maybe to have a discussion about that. I don't know if we want to have that tonight, or I was sort of organized better for the last meeting, but I didn't get quite as organized for this meeting to have this discussion. But at some point in time, I really want to have a discussion about the music program and find out, what we can do to, I guess, improve it or make it a functioning music program, I think. And I do think that there is some frustration with the other teachers that teach music and not just Andy. So I just wanted to bring that up and not lose sight of that. I do want to discuss it at some point in time.
Rick, I just want to add a couple things here. I think that you're right. I think there's a lot of frustration with music educators here and across probably the country, because Music took such a hit this year in terms of being the one content that was restricted throughout the entirety of almost the entirety of the year. I think the other piece that the frustration that I read there were two parts to it that I picked up. One was the schedule that we shifted to in terms of the 4 block. There was concern that that was preventing students from having the ability to take music consistently through the year. And I know that that's something I think Beth and Joseph have both leaned into, is thinking about how we can move forward from here to be able to make that more of a possibility. And the other piece that I read in there, Rick, that I think you pointed to was music education before they get to the high school level or the middle high school level. So I think it's part of a larger picture.
Yeah, so I think that was all, and that's, that's kind of why I'm bringing it up. To me, it's more a systemic problem than it is, just a localized one school issue. I think it's a problem through the whole SU, really, from my interpretation of things,
I would say even broader than that. Yeah. And typically I will just speak as an educator that, usually your band is offered, like band 1 is offered 1 period, right? And so when you're sometimes trying to schedule, but guess what else is also offered 1 period? AP chemistry, or right. And so sometimes it really can constrict the schedule. And sometimes kids get locked out of band, or they get locked out of a class. And so I would say it's even broader than the SU, but that's just my 2 cents.
Right. Yeah, I'm really glad you brought this up, Rick. And I think the components that both you and Lynn addressed around what Andy wrote in the letter are spot on. Yes, the 4x4, an orthodox 4x4 was restrictive for the music program, but it was also restrictive for language arts and math in certain ways too. But Lynn, you're correct that Beth and I have both found ways to work within a 4x4 to have it much more flexible, so that that piece will be removed from the master schedule next. We won't have those same obstacles to deal with next year. We're also looking at, we've been interviewing for a band teacher position, and Andy had a skill set that was more comprehensive. And so he had really good tech skills and other stuff. And so we're looking for band people who have, say, ancillary skills in addition to music education, so that we can plug that in. And our goal is building the music program. I think Andy's main concern in his chats with me were that he felt that the core values and beliefs of the larger district did not support music education or the unified arts in the same way that we are so pro-athletic. And I said to him, well, I don't know whether it's exactly that, but and it's, I think it's a national problem. When things get cut, it's often unified arts or music. And we'd have a revolution if we tried to do away with athletics. But I think that there's a way to balance it and to build a music program K through 12. I remember in my former job down in Orange County, it was Little League and the junior football squad that was feeding the high school programs. And these kids started early developing skills. They had a taste for it. It was the same thing at Riverbend Career and Tech Center. We were opening up 7th and 8th graders and 9th graders to pre-tech opportunities, which then planted the seed for a desire to continue for 10, 11, and 12 in the Tech Center. So that same principle might work with the music program of really starting music education and really feeding that at the lower grades, so that kids are loving to sing and play instruments and wanting to continue it right through high school. So we still have AJ, and he's doing a great job with the choral stuff. I think he's feeling excited that we are going to be when he's on the interview committee for the band teacher. And I was visiting his choral classes, and these kids were having such great fun. And I think they want this choral program to continue. They want band to continue and just music education to continue. And they're hoping it's not going to go away. So bottom line, thank you, Rick, for bringing it up. And thank you, Lynn, for clarifying what some of these components are. What are the challenges here? And music, it has taken a great hit since COVID came along.
Okay, thanks, Joseph. So Rick, maybe do we either move it to another board meeting, or do we maybe ask Lynn to talk about it at the SU level to just kind of bring it full circle and see if.
Yeah, I kind of like to maybe talk about it a little bit at the SU level, I think, because I do think that part of the problem actually is just what Joseph identified, was that he's losing, you know, the high school bands are losing the kids coming in from the elementary school for, you know, a variety of reasons. And I think it's, you know, to some extent, you know, the schedule that's the problem. So I do think that maybe we might need to talk about it a little bit at the SU level.
I think,
you know, I think if you're asking a kid, you know, whether to, you know, practice the saxophone or do recess, I think that, you know, a fourth grade boy there's no doubt which way he's going to go with that, you know. So I do think there's just some systemic problems with that.
I can add that to a future SU agenda. I do think that we should have the conversation through the lens of schedule, and we should also, one of the things that you charge us with merger is to continue to look at equity through the lens of what we have for opportunities across all of our schools. So it might be worthwhile to look at it through that lens as well.
Okay, yes, so there is some equity things as well, I do believe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's move in that direction. Set future agenda items. Anybody have anything?
I got a couple of others. Sorry. But Jane Fletcher sent us an email about signing diplomas at Richford. Do we do that, or do we just do the chair? Are we just doing the chair signing them? I thought we were just doing the chair signing them.
The chair was on the Enosburgh diploma. I think Richford diploma has stayed the same as years past.
Okay.
I believe. I could be wrong. Enosburgh ordered a different diploma than Richford did, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I got, yeah, Jane's email about us all going in to sign it. I thought the same thing. I'm like, wait, I thought we changed
Okay.
it, but you're right. We changed it in Enosburgh.
Okay, and then my next other is, do we want to discuss meeting in person or not yet?
We can't yet. There's guidance that Secretary French has said that he will consider, I don't remember if he said late May or late June. So we still have restrictions in terms of visitors coming into schools. So we couldn't open it to the public yet.
Okay.
Although
we can do it with special, we could do it for meeting. They'll let you for meetings. I think that was in the guidance, wasn't it? Or no?
But remember that you're talking Vermont Forward. Education still functions under its own guidance as well. So some of our guidance falls under Vermont Forward. We still have some specific education related guidance. And he just gave us that update last Thursday that no in-person board meetings yet, but we expect to see something in the coming month or two about when we can start shifting back.
Okay, Governor said the pandemic's over July 4th anyway, right? Isn't that what he declared?
I think you might be right.
So then I got two other things. Valedictorian and salutatorian. So we had promised, I think, Victoria, that we were gonna come up with a plan. Did we do that? Discuss it last meeting? Do you know?
That was going to be my question. If we didn't discuss it last meeting, it was left that it was going to be discussed with the principals to make sure everybody was on the same page. But I was going to ask the same question if something was decided.
Nothing was decided at the last meeting. We didn't even discuss it.
I don't know if Joseph and Beth have had time to talk through how we might celebrate those students. I know that you're already doing it in different ways. I've seen that you have posted your Latin honors students on social media. And I know that we had talked about setting a time to talk about, are there other ways that we could celebrate those high achieving students as well? I don't know if that in everything that has been on your shoulders has actually happened.
We were just talking about this this week at our admin team meeting, and it's wanting to be sensitive to, it's not just Victoria, but a lot of kids are, you know, thinking that they coming up through the system, they're saying, okay, now we're at high school and all that hard work, what has it led to? And I would have been valedictorian, or I think I might have been salutatorian. And so we were looking at other ways to celebrate these kids. And I was going to come up with a couple of annual principals awards that incorporate more of a holistic picture of the kids. And I mentioned it earlier tonight when I said I wanted to look at ways to open up and have our award ceremony reflect a more diverse population, because oftentimes it's the same kids walking away with every single award. They're often the top kid in math, the top kid in social studies, science, and all of that. So we're going to do that, but I'm, you know, I realized that there was a decision made long before I came here around doing away with Val-Sal, and I think it had to do, was tied in with proficiency-based grading and learning and all of that. And it seems to be that moving away from Val-Sal is where a lot of folks in our country are going for those reasons. And yet, how do we celebrate and honor the industry and rigor and attention the kids put in, these very hardworking kids who would ordinarily be valedictorian or salutatorian? I think it's a real valid question. I don't have an answer, but we've got some different kinds of awards this year that I think some of those kids who, well, the kids who would definitely would have had Val and Sal also have other things going for them that would create a more holistic view of their high school life, and they would deserve some recognition. We might have a plaque that we just keep adding names to. I mean, we're looking at it at all different angles. And again, the clock is ticking, and we were aware that no decision was made on Val and Sal or going back to how it was, but we still.
So you did make a decision on that. I don't believe that the board was in favor of moving back on that. That's been a multi-year plan. I think that the direction was for you and Beth to have a conversation, and I don't think I've provided time, certainly at our leadership team meetings, for that to happen. So
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
We had a discussion, but we didn't come up with anything new. I remember Jody was part of that, and we talked about, she suggested like what they do at college with the ropes. Is that what they're called? The
boards.
And we do those already, and signifying it in the graduation program, and we do that already. And so she had lots of ideas, but we both do all of that already. So we did have the discussion, but unfortunately we haven't come up with anything else yet.
Right, and we'll also be acknowledging Latin honors recipients at awards night, in addition to that the letters already went out, all of that, and it's posted on social media, but we're going to also do it again on senior awards night.
So the answer is not yet, but we're thinking about it.
Yeah, and I understand. I think it's a really, actually, if once you start thinking about it, it becomes a really complicated issue on in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But so these are a couple of thoughts I had, right? So I was imagining it. So if you're going to pick a valedictorian, you know, and you're going to send one student to just represent, you know, Enosburgh or Richford to some faraway place, you know, which student would you pick to do that? And I also thought that maybe, so I also had the same kind of concerns that you did, Joseph, you know. So I thought maybe incorporating the portrait of a grad characteristics along with academics into that criteria for what you come up with for a valedictorian, salutatorian, you know. So, and that would certainly get you students from the Cold Hollow Career Center, for example, that might not be considered for traditional valedictorian or salutatorian, certainly in the running.
Rick, am I that you're wanting us to go backwards into thinking about narrowing it down to one or two that are recognized for those categories because what I thought I had heard previously was that the point of proficiency-based systems are to be able to acknowledge, because, well, from my perspective, sometimes there's such a narrow difference between number 1, number 2, and number 3, like a 10th of a point or a 100th of a point, that this Latin honor system allows us to honor the efforts of more students under this system without having to make this a competition that only acknowledges that those 1 or 2 individuals.
So I'm not sure I want you to go, I mean, I think traditionally, no, I don't want to go backwards, but I do think that maybe honoring somebody with the title of valedictorian and salutatorian might be, I just think that maybe that might be something we want to look at doing, you know? And so, you know, again, the Latin honor system pretty much is based on grade point average, right?
Well,
or I mean, it's based on
proficiency,
academic proficiencies, or however you want to put it. But what I'm saying is that maybe you want to have your valedictorian not just based on those, right? So you're not separating, you know, 0.001, but incorporating, you know, our characteristics of a portrait of a grad into that as well. So you have, you know, you have other characteristics in that as well. You know, and it may be those same students that are good, what is it, Summa? Summa's the top? Summa the top?
Yeah, Summa, Magna.
Magna and cum laude, right? Yeah. So, you know, it may be one of the Summa students that would get the valedictorian, but it maybe, but maybe not, you know? So maybe we come up with some different criteria to I don't know. This is just kind of what I've been thinking about in my brain.
Do we have to, like, that's kind of where I'm going with my head, is you can create different criteria, but then you're still ranking and sorting, and you're picking 2 kids. But I mean, I think what you're describing is a little bit of like the intention behind UVM's Green and Gold Scholar, because you don't have to pick for your Green and Gold Scholar the highest GPA.
Right, that's where I was going, is thinking, for instance, your graduation speaker, your student graduation speaker, typically it's, you know, your valedictorian or your class president or whatever, but it doesn't have to be. It could be the kid that, like as Rick was kind of talking about with the portrait of a graduate, it could be the kid that embodies what it means to be, you know, whatever the criteria is. It doesn't have to be GPA calculated. It could just be somebody who, like a Green and Gold, right? Somebody that is chosen. And I get what you're saying about like the one. It seems a little counterintuitive to find one kid out of an entire class. But maybe it's not one. Maybe it's your whole different group. But anyway, just having that criteria and then acknowledging the kids for meeting this criteria. I don't know.
So, Polly, we thought about that this year, and we had always had our Val Sal speak. Those were our 2 speeches. And so we really put a lot of thought into what we were going to do. And we decided that we wanted to honor academics, but we decided to have the president of our National Honor Society be a speaker every year, because it's somebody who's high with academics, but also embodies those other important characteristics, character, scholarship, you know, the other characteristics that are
community service. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're going to have the president of the National Honor Society be one speaker, and the president of the class be the other speaker, because leadership. And so we've done some thinking about things like that. And I do think it's an honor to get to speak at your graduation. So.
Yeah. And maybe that's what goes on the plaque. Maybe that's what gets hung up in the gym, or the 2 graduation speakers. But you would have a set criteria of what constitutes a speaker. But I don't know. I think it really comes down to Victoria just wants some kind of recognition that, you know, kind of leaving a legacy behind for herself and for others. And so what can we do to kind of put the stamp in the building for these kids, you know? And I don't know if it's a plaque or if it's a banner or if it's something like that, but I feel.
Or what you call them.
Or what you call them.
But I do think the spirit of what I do agree with the spirit of what Victoria was saying, you know, is that, you know, there is something that goes with a valedictorian, you know, and I just think that on honoring that with a banner or whoever, with whatever you want to call it, is something we should look at.
Can I say something? Okay. I haven't been here for a lot of the meetings previous years where you've kind of gradually worked in going away from Val and Sal and going into the magna cum laude. But I too had, you know, thought a lot of what Victoria was saying, and I feel for her just because I know how much she worked and others work, and there is always a closeness in that ranking. And I guess I feel too that it'd be nice if we were able to find something, some sort of a plaque to, just because I was a parent of a salutatorian, I think you kind of I can agree, I can see both sides of it, but I think it would be nice to be able to, some with a plaque or something, or some acknowledgement of her accomplishments.
I don't disagree, but with what we're doing this year, I don't know what to do. I don't know whose name would go on the plaque the way we did it, unless we do of the green and gold recipients or something, because the green and gold recipients traditionally are, it's the top person at the end of your junior year. And that person in my time, which is not much, 6 years as a high school principal, has always been either the Val Sal of the senior class, Val or Sal of the senior class. So,
Right.
So unless we go with whoever the green and gold recipient is.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the green and gold recipient.
Like having a plaque in the gym or having a banner that it starts to acknowledge from here forward, we're celebrating.
We could do a plaque, from this point forward.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yep, I think that would be, I certainly think that would be fine. And the other thing is that if you do it at the end of the junior year, you know, you don't exclude all of your early college students either.
Right.
Can I just correct one thing? I texted Jane when we were all talking, because I know that we changed our diploma at the same time Enosburgh did. So I texted her and I said, I thought we changed our diploma. And she said, oh, you're right, we did. I'm just in such a habit of emailing all the board members. So we have the same signature lines, the principal and the board chair. So we did change it. She just was in the habit of emailing everybody. Sorry.
Looks like Kevin has some rounds to make.
So I don't sign anything at Richford High School then? No?
Right.
No,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beth, Polly, and me, I guess. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's Kevin. Kevin's the chair.
Here now.
Yeah.
I get to scratch on it.
All right, and I got one more thing on my other, and then I'm done. But this goes back to our facilities discussion a little bit. And I had the thought at one point in time is maybe having and we don't need to decide this tonight, but I just want to throw the thought out there, a facilities subcommittee, and those, you know, 2 or 3 or however many board members would be on that committee would maybe meet with our facility manager, you know, quarterly or something, and maybe take a tour of some of the buildings, so we have some idea what's going on. I didn't know what other people thought of that.
I get the concept. I don't disagree with it. Just because, I mean, I've stepped foot in all of our buildings before, but it's been several years since I've been into Enosburgh Elementary School, even Cold Hollow. So I don't know what these buildings look like current state. So, you know, it would be good. So we're not taken back by we need what, you know, for repairs. We are in tune, I guess would be the right term.
Okay, yeah, so that I was kind of thinking the same thing. I just, you know, I think that I don't get into most of these buildings, actually very few of them at all anymore. So
Rick, I think
it would be good.
perfect example of a meaningful committee of the whole, right? I think that makes sense to have people looking at that and checking in so that you can speak firsthand when you have to make tough decisions at the board level.
I think the hope is when we're back in person as well, is that you will get to spend more time in the schools as we rotate those meetings around.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. Can I also make just a quick request, is that when we do have that facilities manager conversation at the SU, can we budget like realistic time? Because I have a feeling that conversation is probably gonna.
You probably don't want that at your next meeting then.
So that's what I'm saying. It's just like, let's be realistic about how long that conversation is going to be.
I don't know that you have a choice of avoiding your next meeting, because we've got Jen Hubbard who needs to figure out where she's heading. And if you really want to look at this through the lens of, you know, you have a natural attrition right now happening before we fill up and then have to make.
Well, so fine, but I guess what I'm saying is, can you adjust, is there something else you can adjust in that meeting so that?
I don't think we have anything else.
I mean, basically what.
You have to do food
Oh,
service.
okay.
You
For
have
the SU meeting?
Right, you have seal lease, food service, and it would be this, as far as I know. I don't think
Okay.
anything else, do we, Morgan?
No, but those are two potentially long conversations.
Right, that's all I was saying.
Oh, okay. And that's kind of what I was saying is maybe don't add anything else.
I don't think we have anything else, Polly. Just
okay.
And actually, Kevin, do you know that meeting is on the 21st by chance?
What meeting?
Yeah, that's what I was worried about. So the SU meeting, I think, is Friday the 21st, right, Lynn? At 5:30?
No, it is not.
Isn't it?
Morgan, can you nod your head, because I realized last night is not in my calendar, which is about
Yes, Friday the 21st.
Why did we change it to Friday the 21st?
Because we couldn't come up with any other time that we could do it.
Oh,
we had
because
all
Mary
kinds of-
couldn't
Yeah,
do the 19th. That's
got it.
right. Okay.
so Kevin, apparently, no, wait, I was gonna be the only one there.
Yeah, yeah, I'll try to figure that one out. Try to cram that one in.
Let's not make it a Friday night habit.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, Rick, do you have anything else under other?
No, that's enough other.
Okay, anybody else have anything? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
A
Made by Polly. Sarah?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Polly?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Thank you all. And until next time, have a good night.
Everybody.
Have a good night.